Behind evil, there is a person. In fact, there is a whole host of evil spirit beings, vast hosts of spirits, evil spirits in the spirit world. We're not dealing with the world of the senses. We're dealing with another world, the spirit world, which is discerned only spiritually and not through the senses.
Jeffrey Dahmer's demons. Let's talk about it. Today we're going to talk about one of the most infamous serial killers in America, Jeffrey Dahmer, and a new show based on his life and crimes called Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. Now this show has gone absolutely viral. It's the #1 show on Netflix. Many people have been asking me and messaging me, have you seen the show? Do you plan on watching the show? I do not plan on watching the show because I don't like exposing myself to content such as this. Because if you're spiritually sound, you know that it's not good for your spirit to watch content such as this show that is based on the true story of Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, I knew about Jeffrey Dahmer a long time ago before most people my age. I've seen all the documentaries, the interviews, so I already know enough about Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't need to watch the show. For those of you out there who are unaware on who Jeffrey Dahmer is, I'm going to read to you a brief summary about him. Jeffrey Dahmer is one of the most infamous serial killers in U.S. history. He was convicted of murdering and dismembering multiple men and boys between 1978 and 1991, which was over the course of 13 years, after which he was arrested. He was also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal or the Milwaukee Monster. Many of his later murders involved necrophilia, cannibalism, and the permanent preservation of body parts, typically all or part of the skeleton. Dahmer was also diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, a psychotic disorder. So the show Monster that's going viral right now is based on the life and crimes of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. The entire story of the show revolves around his victims and how he evaded arrest and continued to kill for over a decade. Dahmer murdered 17 innocent people from 1978 to 1991. So of course the main questions many people have, and I used to have, is how can a human being possibly commit such horrific acts? But now I know the answer. No human being can commit such horrific acts or have a desire to commit such horrific acts. Nobody comes out of their mother's womb wanting to kill and eat people and make sculptures out of their bodies. In fact, there were studies done that showed that babies come naturally equipped with the moral compass. Babies can tell the difference between the good guys from the bad guys because we are made in God's image. That's the one thing we have naturally when coming out of the mother's womb. We have a naturally equipped moral compass. So the question is, how does a human being get to that point? Get to that psychotic point of kidnapping people, killing them, eating them, and doing other horrific acts to their bodies. Now, of course, the answer to this a lot of naturalistic people would give is, oh, maybe they have a broken brain, maybe they have a chemical imbalance, maybe they have a broken psyche. But I think the answer is more spiritual. I believe Jeffrey Dahmer was possessed by spirits, and I'm going to tell you guys the reasons on why I think he was possessed by spirits. When I was looking into serial killers, I found out that there is one common factor between all of them. Most, if not all, serial killers have experienced something traumatic in their childhood. When Jeffrey Dahmer was a child, he did not grow up in a loving household. He witnessed a lot of violent arguments. In fact, his father even stated that his son was sexually abused by a neighborhood boy when he was just 8 years old. And I can give other examples of serial killers going through childhood trauma. There's the serial killer Jaime Osuna. When he was a child, he was physically and mentally abused by his father. Then there's the LA serial killer known as the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. He was also abused by his father mentally and physically. So this seems to be a common factor between a lot of serial killers, is some kind of trauma opened them up to these spirits, or what the Bible calls the spirit of fear, because that's what trauma is. It's the spirit of fear, the spirit of heaviness. Now, for those of you who don't know, I compare spiritual oppression and possession to a very popular, interesting show back in the 90s known as Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is literally a show about possessing spirits who live in another dimension known as the Red Room. And there's a specific possessing spirit by the name of Bob who possesses people to commit horrific acts such as murder and many other horrific acts to feed off pain and sorrow, and then through trauma possess other people. And for those of you who have been on my channel for a long time, almost half a year ago, I had the pleasure of interviewing a real licensed, retired psychotherapist who believes in the existence of wicked spirits. Throughout his 40 years, he had a lot of bizarre experiences with his patients, and he came to the conclusion that spirits are very real, and that what the Bible says about spirits and demonic oppression, possession, is also very real. And during that interview, I asked Jerry Marzinski, the psychotherapist, I asked him what opens people up to these wicked spirits. And he said one of the biggest gateways for these spirits, these demons, is trauma. So yeah, trauma is a pretty big gateway that opens people up to wicked spirits. And as I stated, many serial killers have been abused in their childhood. Now what I believe is happening is through this vicious trauma that they've experienced, spirits gain access to them and give them very powerful, compelling thoughts and try to lead them to stronger gateways. For example, the killer Jaime Osuna went through a lot of trauma because of the abuse that his father gave him. And I believe through this trauma, spirits led him to harder, stronger gateways, aka drugs, which opened him up to possession, which got him to commit some horrific crimes that I talked about in one of my videos. Now, I believe that through the trauma that Jeffrey Dahmer went through, the wicked spirits gave him powerful, compelling thoughts to abuse alcohol. And I believe that abusing alcohol can lead you to possession. In fact, that's what a blackout is. In fact, in some religions, alcohol is actually purposely used to invoke spirits. For example, in the voodoo religions of Haiti, they purposely get drunk on hard alcohol such as rum to invoke spirits into their bodies, called Iwa. So in many religions, they purposely use alcohol to invite spirits. And Jeffrey Dahmer definitely abused a lot of alcohol. So another reason I believe that Jeffrey Dahmer was possessed to commit these wicked acts is Jeffrey Dahmer was obsessed with the movie The Exorcist 3 that came out in 1990. In fact, The Exorcist 3 was his all-time favorite movie. He would watch it a few times a week. In fact, he would watch it before going out to hunt for his victims. And when I read that, I was kind of curious as to why specifically The Exorcist 3. Why not the first Exorcist? Why not the second? Why did he really like The Exorcist 3? And why did he go as far to watch it before going hunting for his victims? And I decided to read the plot of this movie to try to find clues as to why he likes this movie so much over the other Exorcist movies. So The Exorcist 3 is literally about a movie where the spirit of a serial killer becomes a demon after his execution called the Gemini Killer. And then this demon possesses people at a psych ward, committing the same style of horrific murders that the Gemini serial killer committed. In the movie, the Gemini killer's murders involve torture, decapitation, and the desecration of religious icons. So yeah, that's the plot of the movie. A serial killer gets executed for his crimes, then that serial killer's spirit becomes a demon in the movie, and this demon, with the help of another demon, possesses people in a psych ward to commit the same style of murders that he did. So yeah, coincidentally, his favorite movie happens to be a movie about a demonically possessed serial killer. In fact, he loved this movie so much that he would actually wear yellow contact lenses before hunting for his victims. Jeffrey Dahmer wore yellow contact lenses to hunt for his victims, like Star Wars Emperor Palpatine, and the character from The Exorcist 3. Now I want to talk about what led to Jeffrey Dahmer's arrest. Jeffrey Dahmer survivor Tracy Edwards reveals moments of potluck which led to escaping monster serial killer. Dahmer went on a killing rampage in Milwaukee between 1978 and 1991, only being arrested after he had murdered and sexually assaulted 17 boys and men. After officers found human remains in his apartment, Dahmer was convicted of the murders and sentenced to life in prison in 1992 before being beaten to death by a fellow inmate in 1994. So this is how Tracy Edwards escaped and how he described Dahmer. Edwards, then 32, met Dahmer at a bar in the Wisconsin city and accepted an offer to go back to his flat after being offered $100. In Dahmer's bedroom, Edwards was handcuffed, but managed to maneuver himself so only one wrist was restrained while the killer waited to strike, according to the upcoming Netflix documentary, Conversation with a Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes. Gerald Boyle, Dahmer's lead defense attorney, explained to the program makers. Dahmer then put on The Exorcist 3, and Dahmer was starting to get into the movie. According to Tracy Edwards, this is what he said about Dahmer. What he witnessed. He started going crazy, motionless, sitting and rocking back and forth in a chair, making these strange noises and talking in tongues. Tracy started acting like they were buddies because he knew that he had to get away or he was going to get killed. The 3-part docuseries shows footage of Edwards talking about his escape to a journalist on a news report at the time, revealing he evaded Dahmer down to sheer luck and quick thinking. Edwards said, "I told him I gotta go to the bathroom, and so I was walking past the guy. I hit him, right? And then I ran for the door, and God had to be with me because he had like 8 different locks on there, and I just picked the right lock out of all of them." After fleeing, Dahmer Edwards bumped into officers who were on the roads in Milwaukee, informing them about the terrifying incidents. Police searched Dahmer's home and were horrified to find Polaroid pictures of dismembered victims and later found body parts including 2 full skeletons. Edwards would go on to testify against Dahmer in court in 1992, playing a key role in the legal proceedings that led to his conviction. Tracy Edwards can never get his life together after meeting with Jeffrey Dahmer. In fact, lawyers believe that Edward suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder because he was just so averse to wanting to remember what happened to him or even talk about it, which I believe led to Tracy Edwards' drug abuse and life of crime. The trauma that Jeffrey Dahmer caused him opened him up to spirits as well. In fact, as I stated, just like the show Twin Peaks, that's the goal of these wicked spirits. Through the trauma gateways and other powerful gateways such as mind-altering substances, they possess people and cause pain and sorrow and then feed off that pain and sorrow. In fact, there's a very heartbreaking clip of one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims' family in court.
I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you, mother. I hate you. Set this out of control. Don't Jeffrey, I kill you. God damn it, look at me, motherfucker. I can kill you.
What's your name, fast?
I can kill you.
In fact, that's what these spirits want. They want people to feel negative emotions. They want people to feel trauma because they want to feed off this energy and they want to oppress and possess people through these gateways again. So to answer the question, what kind of human can possibly commit such horrific acts? No human, because these are not natural human desires. These are the desires of wicked spirits, demons. Nobody comes out of their mother's womb, as I stated, wanting to commit these horrific acts, wanting to eat people and make sculptures out of people and murder and do other horrific things. Nobody does that. I want to go back to the show and talk about the actor that plays Jeffrey Dahmer, Evan Peters. A lot of people who have watched the show are worried about Evan Peters' mental health. Now, Evan Peters is a method actor. In fact, he stated that playing this role was one of the hardest things that he ever had to do in his life because he wanted it to be very authentic. In fact, Evan Peters struggles with playing very dark characters. Jeffrey Dahmer isn't the first dark character that he played. Years ago, he was on the show American Horror Story, and he played some very dark, evil characters. And playing these dark roles on American Horror Story messed with his mental health so much that he actually had to take 2 years off. 2 years off from acting. In fact, the fans of American Horror Story will know that Evan Peters has had to play some pretty horrible characters in the past, including serial killer James March from American Horror Story. But while those characters were fictional, Jeffrey Dahmer is a very real person who did absolutely horrific things in real life. Evan revealed that the challenge of taking on that role and portraying the notorious figure on screen was one of the hardest things that he had ever had to do in his career so far. Evan Peters goes on to state, "I was very scared about all of the things that Dahmer did, and diving into that and trying to commit playing this character was absolutely going to be one of the hardest things I have ever had to do in my life, because I wanted it to be very authentic," Evan told Netflix. He said, "But in order to do that, I was going to have to go to a really dark place and stay there for an extended period of time." Evan previously opened up about the toll that the dark characters he's played in the past have had on his mental health. Evan told GQ, he said, "I'm goofy, I'm silly, I like to have fun, I don't like to yell and scream, I actually hate it, I think it's disgusting and really awful. It's been a challenge for me. American Horror Story sort of demanded that of me. It's been all a massive stretch for me, really difficult to do," he said, playing certain American Horror Story characters. "It's hurting my soul and Evan as a person," he stated. "It's just exhausting, it's really mentally draining, and you don't want to go to those places ever in your life. And so you have to go there for the scenes, and it ends up integrating it somehow into your life. You're in traffic and you find yourself screaming and you're like, what the hell? This isn't who I am." Ryan Murphy also told Entertainment Weekly that it took Evan almost 2 years to recover from portraying these horrific characters on American Horror Story. So yes, playing dark characters have messed with Evan Peters' head. But I believe this is also spiritual. In fact, Aleister Crowley had something very interesting to say about acting and method acting. And this is what he had to say on method acting in his book, Magic in Theory and Practice. He stated this: "There are 3 main methods for invoking any deity. The third method is the dramatic, perhaps the most attractive of all. Certainly it is to the artist's temperament, for it appeals to his imagination through his aesthetic sense." So in simple English, what he's saying here, one of the third methods to invoking a spirit or a deity is through acting and method acting. And another interesting thing, in the book Actors on Acting, Socrates had something very interesting to say as well. Socrates once stated, "In like manner, the muse first of all inspires men herself, because they are inspired and possessed. They are simply inspired to utter that which the muse impels them, for not by art or knowledge do you say what you say, but by possession." Now, to simplify this in simple English, again he's saying that it is not by art, it is not by knowledge or your own free will that you say what you say, but by possession. And what I think is happening with Evan Peters is he is invoking the same deities that possessed Jeffrey Dahmer. So of course, playing dark characters has a toll on his mental health because this is very spiritual. But yeah, very spooky stuff. Spiritual possession is very real. It is not a joke. Be careful what you guys open yourselves up to. Be careful of the type of content you guys are consuming. I myself will not watch this show. I believe these kind of shows and other shows made about serial killers is going to do a lot of damage to society. In fact, it's already done some damage because a man became concerned that his roommate may be a serial killer after watching the Dahmer series on Netflix. So guess what he did? He killed him while he was sleeping. Again, if you're spiritually sound, you should be very careful and cautious about the type of content that you consume. But yeah, that was it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this was fruitful. If you would like to support this channel, I do have a patron. The link for it will be in my bio. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thank you so much for watching. We are out, and I'll see you next time.